all of the variety of texts that have been discovered, and just so many of them are standard Bibles and other Bibles that we may not even be aware of that have written about Nibiru, and try to put it all together and come down to doing the answers, watching, following, and reading, and getting into all of those people that have done so much work. We've had to take into account all of those experts. Zachariah Sitchin, his deciphering of thousands of 4,000-year-old clay tablets that told the story. Dr. Harrington that finally agreed with him at the Naval Observatory, and then all the rest of the people that have worked so hard. We've always needed one good starting point. We had, of course, all the great prophetic writings, the ancient writings, the newer things, all have been done. So many different cultures that have pointed in the right direction. But what we've needed all along was a single starting point. Even I needed one more item to tip the scale to make me 100% believer that this was when it happened, here it is, when it took place, and when we can look forward to an exact date for its return. 3,600-year cycle, a huge orbit for Planet X to go way out past Pluto and then come back in again and circle Earth. We've needed a starting point. And then all of a sudden I came across, again, paperwork and material and a complete report on something that was done and discovered in 1999, the year 2000. And I'm going to show that to you now. This pretty much puts the icing on the cake. This gives us, in reality, a starting point from which we can mathematically come up with a figure as to when is it most likely to pass back close to Earth the next time. And this is extraordinarily interesting. When I finally went over this, after doing all of my research for several years on this, and I finally saw this, it actually put chills up my spine, because I believe, without a doubt, 98% this is probably fairly accurate to what's going to happen. And I want to show that to you now. It starts off with a private investigator like myself, a researcher named Gil Bouchard. And this is what he had discovered. This does tell us when we can expect Nibiru's return. The discovery of the star disk is like finding a diary of an astronomer 3,600 years ago watching the incoming of Nibiru. Gil Bouchard was the one that carefully went inch by inch, second by second, analyzing what had been discovered. Several others had already done reviews and analysis. However, they were incorrect on a few points. All of them are too important to be incorrect on. The ancient observatory was very similar to Stonehenge in its construction, and also, give or take maybe 1,000 years. But if you'll notice here, it's very, very similar to Stonehenge. At this location in Germany, we see the ancient precise observatory. It's like Stonehenge, which you can see here. It's amazing in their similarities. Here it is again. This is the observatory where it was found. This is the actual disk itself being brought in for study into the special museum location. There is, as you can plainly see, it's made of bronze, which of course is lost color to green, and covered in wonderful enhancements of actual gold. The original gold on the left side apparently has fallen off or been taken. When and where was it found? That's a big question. And of course, why is it so important to Nibiru's return? I'm going to show you that now, and this is just fantastic. The 3,600-year-old sky disk was discovered after German grave robbers had tried to sell it in 1999. The disc was discovered to be a timepiece registering the last incoming of Nibiru. This drawing shows us where Gossach, Germany, the location of the observatory was. This is probably the oldest, not counting the Stonehenge. This would be the next oldest observatory during the Bronze Age. The 12-inch wide bronze disc with gold leaf applique representing the sun, the moon, and the stars all at one time on the plate. Interestingly enough, not only is the sun and the moon indicated, but highlighted here are the constellations, which included Pleiades, Capricorn, and Orion. This would be the oldest recorded coverage of galactic activities logged in its proper order. The gold highlights represents the stellar constellations of the sun and the moon. The stellar locations and dates of the event are exact to the day. This also verifies the southern sky view seen in Germany at the observatory. The two large objects in the center represent, of course, the sun and the moon. Since the stars cannot be seen at the same time as the sun, this represents a solar eclipse during the daytime. The sun, stars, and moon all at once. Note the moon at the right. Also note the moon is not causing the eclipse. It is shown to the right, not covering the sun. The moon is seen here where I've marked it with the X. It would have to be to the left to cause the solar sun eclipse. So the question was, what did it? Also important, the illuminated side of the moon is on the wrong side, which should be on the left, as it's indicated here. Now, if we rotate the moon 180 degrees, it would have been the 22nd day of the moon for that month. Important to note here are the two bars on each side of the globe indicated. The bars represent the east and the west horizons. Now, if you'll note, east-west is at the 82 degrees on the plate. A cluster of 7 dots, as indicated here, probably was the Pleiades constellations as it appeared 3,600 years ago. The two curved bars represents the summer and the winter solstice. All these points are important for time, date, and location of the event that's being recorded on this wonderful disc. By the way, the disc is about 12 inches across. The 82nd degree solstice are exclusive to mid-Europe, the very location of Gossach, Germany. The 82nd degree solstices are exclusive to that area. It gives us an exact location of the old observatory 1,800 years before Christ. The next locator is the curved bar at the bottom of the disc. This is, as I would agree with Gill, seen here, this would indicate actually the riverbank from the astronomer and the artist's point of view, where he is actually looking out. In front of him would have been the riverbank of Gossach, Germany. What he sees in front of him is the Saal River. That's the southern border of Gossach. Actually, the River Saal, seen south of the historic site. As you can see, it's located here. There's the old riverbank in red. It's called the Saal River, which still exists to this day. Now, what's great is that upon magnification of the view on the disc itself, the actual riverbanks and the direction of water flow can be seen. As you can see, it's indicated here with the yellow X's, the riverbank and the flow with little hash marks. The directions we're observing is also defined here. We are actually seeing that riverbank. All this is imperative to locate, place, date, and time to create a starting point for us to measure forward. The next question, what are these undefined four planets? They're highlighted here. The computer says that's your regular Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury. With modern computer programs at this point in time, we can actually load in the indicated positions, and we can feed the program, and it will feed back to us not only the verification of locations, but it will tell us the exact year, month, day, and hour, and the location that the event was recorded on the disk. This new amazing computer program will actually give us down to the very hour of the day that the artist created this disc in memory of what had taken place a day or so earlier. The date, which was very important for us. So the date of the disc creation of April 6th, 1810 BC was likely a day or two after the event actually took place. And so the four planets have been identified, and now another question arises. The disk shows the constellation of Orion down at the bottom there, highlighted in gold. The question is, it should not have been seen. The constellation should not have been able to be visualized from Germany at that date. It should only have been visible from a point someplace in Egypt. How can Orion be included on the disk? What was going on there? How could that visual mix-up take place? Here's indicates where Orion was at that time. It should only have been seen from Luxor, Egypt. There is a difference of 26 degrees to fit the disk. The Earth had to have shifted by that much. 26-degree tilt on the axis. Remember, we expect quakes, volcanoes, floods, and gravitational effects worldwide for several months or even a few years after it passes. If this had happened, then there would have to have been some extreme weather changes in Europe and Egypt, as well as other places at the very same time. So a little research was done, and the answer is yes. There was radical changes at that very same time. This sort of will show you the period of time that it took place, and by checking back in records, there had been changes. At that time, it was an unknown near-Earth object causing the solar eclipse for a short period of time. More tests were still needed to find out a little more information and verify that this was an authentic replica of the event. The next test that was run was to verify the location of where the source of the metal was at that time. What type of metal was used for the disk, and where would that metal have been mined? They tested the sky disk, and they found that the metals had been mined from Europe and not from Egypt. In my opinion, this is the key to when Nibiru will return. This study by Gil Bouchard is as good as it gets. I salute his intuitive investigations. To complete the study, Mr. Bouchard looked into similar events and calendar adjustments because many cultures had different changes in their calendars. The eclipse was likely to have been about 3 hours in length. By checking biblical time frames and adjusting for potential calendar adjustments and deciphering antiquity scripts, we can get a better picture of the whole scene. The time frame fits near to the reports of the 7-year drought in the Bible, the time of Joseph. In 1794 is the time when Joseph had the 7-year drought reported, and he led his family out. This is the flaming influx of meteorites raining down, setting the globe afire along with the volcanic eruptions. Many of these things were described clearly in the Bible. Another question is the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. A mix of debris from another planet, probably that had collided with Planet X, created that mess that we have called the asteroid belt. It's a residue of a radical collision. That also fits, of course, into the biblical reports. The sky disk recorded one of Earth's most important events to the exact day, a solar eclipse of 3 hours or more, and the tilting of the Earth by 26 degrees on its axis. The tilt of the Earth indicated here gives you the distance from Cairo, Egypt. The first date of April 6, 1810 BC depends on the calendar adjustments. There were several changes in calendars, and it could be a variance as much as 16 degrees. The eclipse, not by the moon, but by Nibiru, but now we have a record of an actual witness to the event and the date of Nibiru's last pass close to the Earth. The eclipse, not by the moon, but by Nibiru, the giant planet X that was totally unknown to everyone at that time. We who study this are no longer alone. Zachariah Sitchin, Robert Harrington, Marshall Masters, myself, Gil Bouchard, and Dr. Gomez. And now we have the help of an unknown artist, astronomer, who created a disk that gives us the starting point from which we can measure time. And so, what is a date to expect the return of Nibiru? Are you sure you really want to know? I guess that's the question. Nibiru should be sighted visibly in December of 2014, looking like a big star in the sky. Then, in a month or two, meteor showers should begin. March and April, the first of the meteor fields, as Earth passes through the tail of debris first time. It'll be about 150 days, and then we will have a second meteor shower that we will end up traveling through. Now, there are two different groups of thoughts that have emerged on the exact timing. One is using the China historic ancient writings as a primary source. Now, using the ancient China astronomers is pretty smart because they were very intelligent, very accurate, and very unlikely to make errors since they would have their heads removed if they made mistakes. They called the planet X of Nibiru as a visiting star or the flaming dragon. One idea is that Nibiru is on the 30 degrees off, as I was showing you earlier. The others argue that Nibiru is actually on our plane and that it would be on the flat plane. This changes the time it may be seen first and the length of time between the first and the second amount of debris. Between April 2015 and April 2016 are very likely accurate times for the very first sightings. Whichever year, 2015 or 2016, December is probably the very first month it's visible as a star in the sky. It'll take a couple of months for it to come in. Then March or April of Passover is most likely to be the greatest amount of problems we'll have. Putting all the facts together of previous events, biblical prophecies and witness writings, and astronomers' calculations, and from the disk registering the first event 3,600 years ago, we come to one realization. Nibiru is about to return. Whichever year it comes, it will be the time of Passover. If the